Hello students, very good morning. Today we will be starting the ecological engineering. We discussed the three pillars of NBS which we will discuss in details. This is the third one. And under this we will be discussing the basics and applications. Two different ecosystems I have chosen for discussion, water and the terrestrial. And then we will be concluding with the key takeaways. So, ecological engineering, if we try to understand the philosophical foundation of it, it is discussing about the integration of human society with its natural environment for the benefit of both the humans and as well as the nature. And where is the shift from the traditional handling, that is the grey infrastructure? We already discussed a lot. This is trying to actually control the nature, concrete dams, you are bringing different materials, pipe drains you are bringing, and chemicals you are using in STPs. And always they are requiring energy, high energy requirements, as well as if the failure happens, it's a sudden failure, brittle failure. Whereas ecological engineering, this advocates partnering with the nature, self designing, solar energy utilization, biological metabolism. It's a low energy intensive and resilient failure. But at the same time, we have to remember that ecological engineering is not the restoration ecology. Ecological engineering requires the design as well as management, whereas the restoration ecology is recovery of what it used to be. So, ecological engineering often works with the novel ecosystem as well, like you introduce a new species that will be adapted to the new conditions. The principles of this ecological engineering, if we have to discuss, the very first thing and foremost thing we have to discuss is the self designing or auto organization. Designers set the initial conditions like basin shape, hydrology, etc. Nature selects the species mix automatically later on, but you have to give time for it. Solar based, we discussed already, photosynthesis is going to be there as a process rather than the fossil fuel, the electricity. So, this sunlight will be the power, unlike the other systems. System approach is the catchment, not just the end of pipe. So that is again you can say it's a paradigm shift. Ecosystem conservation provides habitats while performing engineering work like cleaning water, that's a performance. And its goal is self-sustaining ecosystems with minimum human management. And if we can instill this ecological engineering in particular site, then we get both the ecological integrity as well as human welfare. Time scale is longer, 5 to 20 years establishment phase, that's quite long. And people in many a times we have seen they lose the patience. When we try to understand ecological engineering, very first thing probably comes to our mind how different it is from the environmental engineering, which we discussed in the last class only. You can look at the philosophical basis where we see that environmental engineering is controlling, deterministic, whereas ecological engineering is having a partnership creation with the nature and it's a stochastic design. Primary energy sources are different, system stability is different, pollutant management, sequestration or chemical transformation we see in environmental engineering, whereas in ecological engineering we see the transformation and resource recovery. So it gets attenuated. Design approach, design and build, and whereas design and guide. Initial conditions you set, then nature will have the self regulation. Skill requirement, yes, definitely, but two different types electromechanical maintenance, chemical handling, that is important in environmental one, whereas in this ecological one, biological expertise is more important. Cost structure, both the capex and operational cost is high, whereas the capital cost is moderate and very low opex. Now we'll be discussing applications. As I told you earlier, we will go for two different ecosystems. One is the water. Bioretention cells are engineered landscape basins combining infiltration, filtration, and biological uptake. So, through this, we can actually take care of the rainwater. This is more robust than rain gardens and suitable for high traffic areas. If you compare this bioretention cell with the rain gardens which we discussed under the blue-green infrastructure, you will find these engineered paths of these under drains which is connected with the drainage system. So more engineered approach is here, for that only performance also can be improved, or we can expect this particular system will take more pollution loading. Bioretention cell, you can again read this particular drawing by yourself. I have already explained this rain garden one. Only thing you have to note, that is this drainage system. That is very important for you. And you will find the similar information is very much required for designing it, like ponding zone, filter media, under drain. If you are providing perforated pipe is always preferred. Vegetation and the surface area what it can drain. So we can find that ponding zone is actually acting as a temporary water storage, runoff slows down. Filter media helps in pollutant removal via soil filtration and microbial activity. Vegetation helps in transpiration, nutrient uptake, habitat. Application potential in a tropical climate like India for this bioretention cell, you need to consider it as a non-infiltrating underdrain liquid when native soil hydraulic conductivity is less than 25 mm per hour. But if this soil hydraulic conductivity is a better one, more around 200 mm per hour, then you can go for engineered media and you can guarantee the performance. Now, the second one I would like to share with you under this ecological engineering, that is the green roof. I think probably all of us we are quite aware and acquainted with the green roof's details. So we will not going into the details of it, like what it is and all this. You can read this description by your own. But definitely, it is something we are adding on the rooftop. So we have to be very careful about the drainage, whether it is extensive or intensive or semi intensive. But if it is intensive green roof, you need to also look at the weight, the additional load it is bringing. So that load is a structural load and that has to be considered. And there is a very good detailing here. You can just go through it. I will discuss this extensive one and intensive one. We can also see the differences. So first you are having your roof deck, that is with the vapor barrier, waterproof membrane. Then you are having the root barriers. So if it is having any kind of probability that roots are getting elongated, then at least in this media it will be stopped. It cannot go down there. It will be stopped more, I think, prior to that only it is expected. But by any chance, if it is trying to climbing down, it will be controlled here. Then there is a protection layer. Then this is the leak detection layer. So in this leak detection layer, whatever additional water which is not really expected that is coming, that will be drained out. On top of that, we are having the thermal barrier insulation. It's optional in most of the standard buildings or customized building in today's time. This thermal insulation is being used. Then we are having the media, filter fabric is there. Then we are having again the drainage layer, and on top of that we are having the media, soil media. So this growth medium is very important. We can see it is 75 to 100 mm. On top of that we are having the low plants, sedums, herbs which will not grow tall. And you will also find that there is vegetation free strip, so that people can take care of this green roof from all around. And at the corner the proper drainage is there, and the emergency overflow outlet is also there. It is always important to remember that whenever we talk about water, you have to think about you have to keep a chance for the overflow. Always, in any system you design, try to remember that overflow has to be added into that. So it's an extensive green roof. It's lightweight, shallow substrate vegetated roof, and it requires minimal maintenance. And it supports hardy, low-growing plants and ecological benefits we get rather than public access. But in the case of intensive green roof, major change you will find in the growth medium and also the type of plants, and you will have some depth variation, which we have seen in the extensive one is shallower, here it will be deeper. A deeper, heavier vegetated roof resembling a park or garden with lawns, shrubs, and potentially trees, and it offers higher biodiversity and social benefits, but requires regular maintenance and greater structural support that I have already discussed in the beginning of these green roofs. So, extensive green roof and intensive green roof, you can have a good comparison and you can see soil depth, vegetation, weight. You just see 60 to 150 kg per square meter, whereas the saturated weight is 300 to 600 kg per square meter. So, it's a hugely different load. Runoff retention, temperature reduction, you can see the differences here. Retrofit suitability is very high in case of extensive one because you need not to really consider the structural load, but in this case structural upgrade is required. Maintenance, low maintenance for the extensive one, high maintenance for the intensive one. And we have seen enough application of these green roofs in many different places. Especially, we can see institutional buildings are taking advantage of these green roofs, whether extensives or intensive or sub-extensive, semi-intensives. They are becoming also a brand image for those institutional buildings. For India, extensive green roofs recommended for retrofit programs like Amrut, Jal Jeevan missions, etc. Intensive green roof suitable for institutional or commercial buildings, but it has to be designed properly structurally. Next thing we will be discussing in for this water related ecological engineering, that is the urban wetlands. And in this we will be discussing both natural one as well as constructed one. All of us we know what is an urban wetland or any wetland, saturated land areas. If it is within the urban areas, it's a urban wetland. Kidneys of the city because it filters the wastewater, stormwater through the biological process, and it also recharges the groundwater. And we have also seen, and we will bring back that Kolkata wastewater case again, and we will find that so many other benefits we can actually accrue from this type of facilities. Suitable locations, low-lying sinks, natural depressions of a city, wastewater outfalls at the end of the stormwater drains, peri-urban interfaces, transitional zones between city limits and the agricultural land. Hydraulic retention time, that is important to understand when you design the urban wetlands, if you are designing it, especially the constructed one. So 3 to 5 days you have to have this retention time so that treatment can be allowed. Depth will vary across the system, that also we will discuss. You can see here the depth, representative depth, how it is varying, and across the scale as well. Requires 4 bays entry point, that is the inlet, at the inlet, and prevent clogging with silt. So when you are bringing that sewage or wastewaters into the system, you have to have this 4 bays so that there shall not be any clogging at the inflow. So gross pollutant levels, here it will be sedimented first and then it will start having its flow, and this leaf and organic matter will be removed. There is a barrier here, and through this porous barrier it's also going to be spread across this water retention area. And then vegetation, series of different vegetations are there, and each one of these species are contributing to take out the pollution loading, and ultimately that will come out and then the outlet is there. And if there is any pressure, you will always keep a provision of the high flow bypass, like I was discussing the outflow in case of green roof. Here also you can say see a bypass. Constructed wetlands, as it has been already proven that wetlands can take a lot of pressure without really demanding a lot or in the form of money. So most of the sensible urban local bodies, they are now thinking about constructed wetlands. It's an engineered system mimicking natural wetland processes, physical, chemical, biological, to treat the wastewater. Sedimentation and filtration, that is a major mechanism, physical mechanism. I was showing you that initially it is getting sedimented and filtration will happen over the filtration will happen. Chemical adsorption and precipitation, and biological microbial degradation and plant uptake. So you use these wetland plants which are also helping in taking that nitrogen and other nutrient uptake. Unlike natural wetlands, constructed wetlands have precise hydraulic retention times and loading rates because you are designing it. If you know what is going to be your inlet design, then you have to accordingly design the depth, the media, the type and density of the plants, so that you know by the time it reaches the outlet, it has already been treated as per the expected target condition. There are several different types of constructed wetlands, like free water surface, open water, resembles marshes, high biodiversity, but risk of mosquitoes and odor. But you need large parcel of land. Generally, we have seen the subsurface flow, horizontal and vertical, and their combination, that is more opted one. Water flows horizontally. You can see here water is flowing horizontally, and no exposure to atmosphere and good for BOD removal. And the vertical one, pulse loading. You can see the influent is coming, the flow direction is vertical, you are having the effluent. So in this case, pulse loading from top, excellent oxygen transfer happens and very good for nitrification and ammonia removal, and high engineering complexity. What is the hybrid system? Here also we are talking about hybrid systems because it can bring benefits from both the sides. So you initially have the vertical one, and then first stage effluent is coming to the horizontal system, and final effluent you are getting, whereas the influent initially came in the horizontal subsurface flow system. In situ nala retreatment, RENU, green bridges, this is something very commonly now being seen, and very intelligent system, I will say. We are having open storm drains, nalas, which are illegally carrying the sewage. They are not supposed to carry the sewage. So STPs are always not possible because they are very expensive and very slow treatment. So it is also now being looked upon that whether this nalas can be treated, and one of the very good strategy has come up, green bridges, porous dams you are making out of stones, coir and plants, which will filter water when the water will flow through them. So this restoration of nala with ecological units, this is a government initiative again, RENU. And you just see here filtration through gravel and stone barriers are happening. Then biofilm also you can add on the or the media which is degrading the organic matter, and you can you can introduce aeration, turbulence which will be created by the barriers and will add the dissolved oxygen into the wastewater. Urban nalas, small tributaries entering rivers. In these places already this bio bridges are being utilized. Aha River, Udaipur is also another good case of these green bridges, and we can see there also BOD reduction is 50 to 70%, Odor elimination is happening. Do you remember I was discussing the odor elimination? So that is happening. Restoration of aquatic life is also happening. Now the next thing we'll be discussing that ecological engineering application for the terrestrial one. And first one we'll be discussing that is bioengineering for slope stabilization. In today's time, we know that there are a lot of issues happening with the terrained areas wherever the slopes are there. A lot of destabilizations are happening. So here we will find the vegetation and soil bioengineering to maintain that slope. So principles, the first one is the mechanical one. Plant root networks act as reinforcement, tensile strength, and reducing the pore water pressure, because now the roots are also taking out, it's a water uptake by the roots, that is also reducing the pore water pressure. The second one is the hydrological one. Vegetation intercepts rainfall, root transpires, and that also, through that also, soil moisture is getting reduced and increases the effective stress only, not the total stress. And the third one is the biological one. Soil microorganisms, they improve the soil cohesion via exopolysaccharides. And this is very, very relevant, these discussions, for the Himalayan highways and as well as the Western Ghats, wherever we are having these slopes and we are not being able to manage them, and we are finding lot of landslide incidences. I will also continue this discussion. You can read from this slide the how the roots stabilize the slopes, both the direct reinforcement as well as indirect impact they create, the roots. As I was discussing, that roots can act as a tension cables. Dense root network always gets the load distributed, and effective depth is quite deeper actually, depending on the plant types. Indirectly also, the pore water pressure can be managed. Winter dormancy is there, roots are remaining dormant during the winter season, but no issue, because during the winter season also rainfall is less. So moisture is also managed. Design parameters for this bioengineered slope stabilization, you have to consider slope angle, planting density, root depth requirement, soil preparation, drainage provision, and establishment phase. So these are certain parameters. You can see the specification as well as the design considerations. Brush layering is a very traditional technique and very interesting technique. You can see that you are having this type of branches which has been placed from at a distance, you are 2 to 3 meters distance, you are putting them. Live branch cuttings are laid in crisscross pattern. You just see here crisscross pattern, you are putting them in the slopes. They act as a composite reinforcement because now the soil is getting compacted. So that's the way it is also getting reinforced, because they are having these branches. The design parameters, you have to look at the slope angle, vertical spacing, angle of cuttings, and the species which will be used here, those branches. And this is something even in uh, other countries like Nepal also we have seen its application. Live tree walls, this is something which we have seen application even in our Jammu Kashmir HP. What you are doing, you just see, you can see from here, box like gravity retaining structure you are making out of interlocking of logs or timbers. So you are using the natural materials, not the concretes, and this is filled with the stone and soil and live cuttings. So you are not using lot of non-natural materials or imported materials. Design parameters, the tilt, the height, the function, all these things depends will define how to really go for the design details. Like if you would like to have the immediate mechanical support as well as the long term stabilization, then you have to think about not only timbers but roots are also important. So again you have to give certain times here. Himalayan stabilization, as I was telling you, that we have seen uh, application of many such traditional wisdom, in this case bamboo check dams and brush layering, which we discussed just now. So this type of application is already there in our areas. Miyawaki is a new process. It is also a controversial process, but this is also being actually it's a part of ecological engineering. So Dr. Akira Miyawaki from Japan, he started creating this potential natural vegetation. So the mechanism is high density, multi-layered and microclimate control. So those are the things you need to take care when you are designing it. The parameters are planting density, soil preparation, species ratio, and mulching. There are a lot of discussions going on that how effective they are in the long term. These species are the native species, because generally the native species probably have the long gestation period. And for the water also, they are having, if you are having non-native species and soil is not really ready for that type of species, your both nutrition and water demand will be very different. So that's the way Miyawaki is actually getting mixed up responses. Right now, government is very much open to it, but the ecologists, conservation specialists, they are having lot of reservations about it. It is being used in Indian cities, urban heat island mitigation, green lungs, biodiversity pockets, noise buffering. There are n number of benefits which we can gather from this particular urban forestry, any urban forestry for that principle, for that matter. But in this case, we are getting very soon we can generate a forestry. Key takeaways from the ecological engineering: the shift is from controlling nature, environmental engineering was advocating that. Now we are trying to partner with the nature. That is the basic tenet of ecological engineering. Longer time scale, but self sustaining and adaptive. India specific innovations and mission programs are there. We were discussing the Green Bridge under the Renew, which has come out of the needy, and that can be a global model. Himalayan bioengineering, which I was showing you, those very interesting stabilization structure of logs, that can be also going for at least to the global south it can go. Multifunctionality is always being a strength of this any NBS, and in this case also there is no exception. In the ecological engineering also we can find treatment, carbon storage, biodiversity, flood mitigation. Many benefits are happening simultaneously. Its economic value may be more than the conventional treatment, but in the long run, it's a short term economic value. You are considering long term, it's going to be beneficial. So, today we have discussed this ecological engineering, its application for water and terrestrial systems, and key takeaways. With that, we concluded the lecture. These are the list of references for you, long list. Thank you.